it's Mother's Day. I mean, do you realize there are more phone calls made today than any other day of the year? Father's Day doesn't get that many phone calls as Mother's Day. There are more flowers bought today than any day of the year. Can you believe that? More than Valentine's Day. Can you hear me through the mic? Is that working? It is? It doesn't sound like it, but oh well, we'll find out. I've got some more statistics for you. It was crazy. I was trying to look up things that mom do and the statistics for moms. And I know some of you aren't moms here. One of you is not a mom. But technically in the church, we're all one body. And in the church, we all raise the kids here in one way or another, you know? So we'll get into that later. But mom statistics. There are over 2 billion mothers in the world today. The average age of a new mom today is 25, and in 1970 it was 21. Modern moms average 2 kids. So the modern family has 2 kids. In the 1950s, it was average 3.5 kids. In the 1700s, it was 7 to 10 kids, average. Can you believe that? 7 to 10. I mean, the Duggars would have been normal then. Duggars? Duggars? You can tell how much I watch it. Let's see. There are 4.3 babies born every second. I've never seen a third of a baby born, have you? 4.3 babies every second born in this world. There are over, this is crazy, for one kid, by time they reach the age of 2, the average mom will have changed 7,300 diapers for that one kid in 2 years. What? That is an average of 18,000 diapers changed for a baby's lifetime. That is if they go till they're 4. Now, if you have 3 kids, if you have 4 kids, that's almost what? Almost 100,000 diapers you will change. And that doesn't include grandkids. So you're probably over 100,000 diapers changed in your lifetime. That's a lot of poop. Let's see. Diaper changing speeds. A mom takes 2 minutes and 5 seconds. That's 3 40-hour work weeks each year changing diapers. A man takes an average of 1 minute and 36 seconds. It's probably because we can't handle the smell. We get it done and over. It's probably not done properly. Preschoolers require mom's attention once every 4 minutes or 210 times a day. Preschooler moms spend an average of 2.7 hours a day on primary child care versus 1.2 hours a day for a dad. Women average 2.2 hours a day doing chores. 80% of all laundry is done by moms, totaling 330 loads of laundry and 5,300 articles of clothing each year, average. It's a lot of laundry. I think I do laundry like twice a month. Let's see. Reading is the most common activity for a mother, followed by talking on the phone, meditating, watching TV, drinking coffee, eating, and balancing the checkbook. The records for mothers. A woman in Russia gave birth to 69 children between 1725 and 1765. 69 kids. Can you believe that? The world record for the amount of kids born. The oldest mom record goes to Rosanna Dahlia. She gave birth to a baby boy when she was 63 years old in Italy in 1994. The heaviest newborn, now this one's crazy. I can't pronounce her name, so I'm just going to say that this woman gave birth to a 22-pound, 8-ounce boy in Italy in 1955. Okay, that's beyond a bowling ball. I don't even think I could bowl with a 22-pound bowling ball. Could you? 22-pound, 8-ounce boy. The first Mother's Day was in May 10th, 1908. And it was made a national holiday in 1914 by President Wilson. 50% of households give Mother's Day cards totaling 1.52 million cards every Mother's Day given out. Isn't that crazy? And the more I read the statistics of what a mom does, you know, the video we showed kind of tells a different view from a man's point of view of what a mom does. You know, because a man looks at what a mom does at stay at home all day as she's in the bathtub making herself pretty, she's going to the gym, she's doing her nails, getting her hair done, going to the grocery store and picking out dinner, you know, shopping Pinterest for the dinner for that. I mean, that's what a guy thinks. I mean, while we're working hard all day, I'm kidding. Eating bonbons. Do they even have bonbons anymore? But the reality is a mom does so much more. When I started reviewing these facts, I mean, I found it phenomenal the amount of time that is spent doing the stuff that they have to do to be a mom, right? And you don't realize how much time it takes to raise a child. It's insane. And I've always heard that the one thing that a mom wants for Mother's Day is a day to herself. I always thought, whatever, women don't want that. They want chocolate and flowers. But no, after reviewing these facts and seeing exactly what women go through and what they do, I can understand why they just want a day to themselves. My mom, I don't think she ever got a day to herself when we were kids. We were, well, you know, back then they would say boys will be boys. I don't know if it has the same connotation today. Our world's gotten a little bit safer for kids. You know what I mean? It's like there's more coddling. You know, kids can't go out and run free like we did. You know, when I was a kid, from the moment on Saturday morning when Saturday morning cartoons were over, because that's the only time we got to watch cartoons was Saturday morning, because that's the only time they were really on. And we would get up and watch our Saturday morning cartoons, eat our cereal. As soon as that was over, we were gone. We were out of the house, and we were not to be seen until the light came on the street. We had street lights, and if the street lights came on and we weren't home, we were in trouble. So we had to be home before the street lights came on. But we would go everywhere. We rode our bikes from one end of town to the other. And, you know, I see today, I've got friends here that won't let their kids ride to the other side of Buffalo. You know, and our town is the town I grew up in was the size of Woodward or bigger. And we would ride from one end of town to the other. And I was in 4th, 5th grade riding my bike to the pool every day in the summer. You know, but that's the world we lived in, was different. But was it different? You know, in reality, we had the same kind of people then, right? There were still evil people, and there were still people that kidnapped children and did things. It was just, things were different. We didn't wear seatbelts. You know, I remember one time my mom had a Mustang, and I don't remember what year it was. It was an older Mustang, and my brother was riding up front, and she turns the corner, and at that point my brother was, you see, you had to crank the windows then. And I know some of you know the crank windows, but um, the crank was kind of like the pull for the door, and my brother pulled the door opener instead of cranking the window as she was turning, and he fell out the vehicle and rolled down the street. Today, she would probably go to jail for that. For one, he was sitting in the front seat. For two, he wasn't in a chair. You know, I look at some of the things and I'm like, holy cow. Until a kid is 4'9", they have to be in a booster seat. I know a lot of women that should be in booster seats. So, you know, we've gotten, I don't know how we've gotten to where things are safer. You know, I was talking, I think it was to Wes the other day. I mean, we played with fireworks. I mean, I played with fire. I think my mom's put out more fires because of me when I was a kid than ever. And today, I mean, the things I did as a kid, I mean, I was a boy. You know, I like to explore and like to do things, and I did boy stuff. I mean, I got dirty, I got nasty. I picked my boogers. You know, I did everything boys do. But it seems like today there's a difference between boys of today and boys of the past. And the one thing I'm starting to notice is kids today are being put in adult situations a lot earlier than they were when I was a kid. You know, I don't remember when I was a kid seeing all these commercials about sexual stuff. I don't remember seeing billboards with half-naked women on them all the time. I mean, sex was something that it wasn't really talked about. It was kind of taboo. You may have gotten lucky and found a magazine when I was a kid, but we didn't have the availability of pornography like they do today. And when you start getting into those statistics, it gets really scary. And when you start seeing what grade schoolers are going through, and the things that they are being introduced to because of this world, the things that have become acceptable because of this world, and it's kind of weird. It creates this weird paradigm of we're kind of overprotective now, like super protective. We have to use, what's that stuff, Purell, to wash your hands before you grab a grocery cart. They even supply the things to wipe your grocery cart and sanitize the whole thing. Next, they're going to have like a wash bay that you walk through with your grocery cart, and it sprays all of you down so you're clean when you come into the store. But it's crazy. And you know, I look at my mom and I look at how she was, and I looked at the things she dealt with me. And then I look at the way kids are today, and the way that society is raising our kids. You know, because the fact is it's over 65% of mothers in this country work. The majority of moms in this country work. And they say that the reason so many families have both working parents is because our society has trained us to be this I've got to have it society. And because of this I've got to have this society, we want the nicer house, we want the nicer cars, we have to have everything we want. We have to have 5 curling irons and 3 blow dryers, and you know, we have to have like every kind of utensil to cook with, and we have to have different plates for different settings. So if company comes over, we have nice plates for them, or if regular people come over, we have regular plates for them, and if our buddy comes over, we got paper plates for them. You know, and you gotta you gotta have all this different stuff, and our society has gotten that way, right? It's become about commercialism, and some of that commercialism has worked into the households to where now we find that our mothers are no longer stay-at-home moms as much. We can't afford to have stay-at-home moms, right? Just because we want what's different than what they wanted in the 70s and 60s and earlier on. Not that they didn't want nice things, but the priority was different, right? When I look at my family, my parents lived on like $200 a month when I was a kid. I mean, that's insane to think about now. I mean, could you imagine $200 a month? I mean, $200 a month here, you're below. I mean, welfare people make more money than $200 a month. And so our world and our society has changed. And it's, I can't imagine being a kid today. You know, we find that our kids are growing up more without their mother. Our kids are being raised by the school. They're being raised by TV. They're being raised by video games, YouTube, the internet. They learn most of the important things that they need to learn off the internet. I mean, you could Google anything. You know, one of the things I've learned that it doesn't matter how strict of filtering you put on your computer, there's always a way around it. And the kids are geniuses when it comes to that. You know, and some families are really good about it, but the majority of them, the majority of people today, their kids have phones by the time they're in 4th, 5th grade. You know, they have a cell phone, and not just any cell phone. I mean, I couldn't imagine having a cell phone when I was a kid. You know, if we wanted to call mom, we called collect from a payphone, or hoped our buddy's parents had a phone, and then you hope your mom's home and answers the phone, or you just go home. But nowadays, kids are so connected and they're so wired in, and they're learning about things in life from their friends and from their school. And I don't know about you, but that's scary. And I noticed when I was a youth pastor, and working with junior high kids, I would have these kids would confide in me, and they would talk to me about what goes on in their day and what they're dealing with in life, and some of it honestly scared me. The pornography addiction with kids in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade is just astounding. The things that they have seen is astounding. And they're dealing with these issues, and they're dealing with suicide, and they're dealing with, you know, mourning loss and mourning friends, and the drama that they normally, I mean, I was playing G.I. Joe in junior high. You know, I was still playing with toys. But kids today, they don't play with toys anymore. And it's just crazy. And the worst part is I found that a lot of parents didn't realize what was going on in their children's lives. And some of the parents would hear me talking about some of the issues, you know, because you know me, I'm an issue talker. I speak on issues. If our church has issues, the majority of the issues is what I'm preaching about. I mean, there's no point in me preaching about something that doesn't help you, right? So I preach about things that are going on in the group that I'm preaching to. So when I'm talking to teenagers, and the majority of the teenagers I have are having sex, and they're doing drugs, and they're drinking, and they're partying, and they're on the internet looking at porn, we're going to talk about it. And I had this one 6th grade girl, and she came up to me one night, and she started telling me about how she's gotten into pornography and how she was having sex with her boyfriend. And I love that I have good female volunteers sometimes, because that's the times where I'm like, okay, I can't talk about sex to you, but you know, it brought me to tears, you know, because here she was, a little kid. And so the next week, I talked about this. Not specifically her, but about the issue. And I talked about sex that week. And I kind of told my backstory and told about some of the things I dealt with when I was their age. And I had about 8 mothers come to me after that sermon and just chew me out. My daughter is sheltered. She doesn't know anything about sex. She doesn't know anything about pornography. Why are you talking to my kids about this stuff? And one of the mothers happened to be that little girl's mother. And I told her, I said, I want you to know the reason I did this message is because of your daughter. Because your daughter came to me and was dealing with this. And the reason I did this message is because of all your daughters have been dealing with this. I said, but you don't know that because you're not involved in your children's lives. You know? We think we've got them sheltered. We think we've got them covered. We think they're not getting involved in this stuff. But when they spend 80% of their time not with us, and they're being taught 90% of the things they learn, not by us. You know, I was reading another statistic. Only 1 out of 10 mothers will read their kids bedtime stories, and only half of them are Bible stories before going to bed. Now, in the 70s, it was 7 out of 10. And 6 out of 10 read Bible stories to their kids. The majority of moms today do not talk to their children about God. They don't have deep conversations about God with their children. They don't force their kids to go to church. And I think a lot of that has to do with we were forced to go to church and we hated it and hated being forced, so we decided we're not going to do that. But as you start looking at the statistics and you start looking at the issues going on, you start to notice on the other end of the spectrum that slowly and slowly God's coming out of the picture. God's coming out of these kids' lives. The Pledge of Allegiance is taken out of most schools today. And some of them that have the Pledge of Allegiance have taken under God out of it. God has completely been taken out of our schools. The morals that we lived by in the 70s and before were biblical morals. The U.S. was based on biblical morals. And when you look through the biblical morals, the origins of those come from God. But today our morals are set by our society. Have you noticed that? I mean, we have societal morals now. Now, instead of things that were unacceptable have become acceptable. It's modern day stuff. I mean, it's okay. You know, to talk about Viagra on TV, that's okay. To have commercials talking about it in the middle of the day, that's okay, right? We see it all the time. To have cussing all throughout normal TV shows now. Every word but the F-bomb. I mean, there's no word that's not said except for the F-bomb. It's the only one that's still taboo. And even it, I'm sure, is not going to last long. There's drug use prominent in TV shows today. There's sex prominent in TV shows today. I mean, cartoons. Have you watched some of the cartoons your kids are watching? I mean, some of the cartoons, I mean, I understand when I was a kid, I go back and I watch some of the Looney Tunes cartoons, And I can see now some of the innuendos that were in there, but they're nothing like they are today. Today, they're not innuendos. Today, they've become our society norms. The way kids dress today. I mean, I know people have always had issues with dress, but when you look back at the TV shows I grew up on in the 80s, and in the kids shows, they would show the girl that looked like she was for lack of better words, the slut, the bad girl, or the hooker on TV, and they're dressing like they are now. I mean, what's the point of a pair of shorts that shows everything, right? We have spandex pants that women wear everywhere that literally leave no room for imagination. And not only do women wear them, but our kids wear them. I mean, there's no modesty anymore. And, we wonder why the world is the way it is. Why our children have the issues they have. When I was a kid, if I disrespected an adult, not only could I get punished by that adult, but I would then get punished by my parents. And punishment then was a whole lot different. My parents used a belt. They had a big, wide police belt, a big leather belt. My dad would use that belt on me. And I hated it when Mom would whip me, because Mom was a little bit different than Dad. Mom couldn't hold us down. We would wiggle and move, and Dad could hold us in place, and he hit the mark. I mean, he would hit the mark every time. He could, it didn't matter how much you wiggled, he would hit you in the same spot. Mom, she just swung. And back of the head, the foot, the leg, it doesn't matter. She's just going to whip you. And it's more of a whipping rage than it is with Dad. Dad seemed like he was determined to whoop your hide and to hit that one spot so it continually hurts over. Mom, she just was whooping you. But my teachers had paddles. They all had a paddle. They had a big wooden paddle with holes drilled in. My principal had a paddle. And if you acted up, you were taken out into the hall away from the other kids. You were pulled into a broom closet or sometimes another room, and you were told to bend over, and they would whack you. And depending on your crime, depending on how many whackings you got. And you would get whacked by the teacher, and then you would be sent from the teacher to the principal's office, where the principal would make you bend over the desk, and he would whack you a few times. And then they would call your parents, and then your dad would get home, and some of them had a paddle, some of them had a belt. My dad had a belt. And your dad would whoop you. And you might even get it from your mom too. That's the way it was when I was growing up. We learned respect. You don't get me wrong, there were kids that acted up. But, I know that I never would have acted up the way I see some kids acting up today, especially in public. And I would never, oh my gosh, I would never come into a church and run wild in a church. I would never act up during service. The worst I would do is sleep. But my mom brought coloring books and gum. But I say all this because we're growing up in a different world than we grew up in. And slowly our society's starting to push God away from our churches, push God away from our families, push God away from our lives, right? And you can see the detriment from from the time that God's been starting to be pushed away till now, the effects it's had on our society and our world. Now, the Bible in Proverbs 31, it talks about the virtuous woman. What it means to be a woman of noble character. Now, some people will look at this and say, this is calling you for an outdated message. To be this kind of woman, and I'm going to read this to you real quick. This is Proverbs 31, verse 10 through 31. It's kind of long, but I'm going to read it all. And this is a description of what it means to be a woman of God, a woman of character. It says, who can find a virtuous woman and a capable wife? She is more precious than rubies. Her husband can trust her, and she will greatly enrich his life. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She finds wool and flax and bustily spins it. She is like a merchant ship bringing her food from far. She gets up before dawn to prepare the breakfast for her husband and plans the day's work for her servant girls. She goes to inspect a field and buys it with her earnings, and she plants a vineyard. She is energetic and strong. She is a hard worker. She makes sure her dealings are profitable. Her lamps burn late into the night. Her hands are busy spinning thread, her fingers twisting fiber. She extends a helping hand to the poor and open her arms to the needy. She has no fear of winter for her household, for everyone has warm clothes. She makes her own bedspreads. She dresses in fine linen and purple gowns. Her husband is well known at the city gates, where he sits with the other civic leaders. She makes belted linen garments and sashes to sell to the merchants. She is clothed with strength and dignity and laughs without fear of the future. When she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. She carefully watches everything in her household and suffers nothing from laziness. Her children stand by and bless her. Her husband praises her. There are many virtuous and capable women in the world, but you will surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised, rewarding her for all she has done. Let her deeds publicly declare her praise. Now, when we first read this, it sounds like it's old time, right? But I want to go over the key things in this that it's talking about. One of the first things that it's talking about is faith. One of the big things is faith. It says that a virtual woman will serve God with all her heart. A virtual woman has faith in God. A virtual woman will deliver God to her family. She will spend time with God. She will get to know God. That doesn't sound far off, right? A virtuous woman will share God with her children and plant that seed in her children's life. And a virtuous woman will share God with her husband. The next thing is it's got areas where it talks about in marriage. I think the big thing that it points out is that a virtuous woman will respect her husband. Today, do we see that? Do we see women respecting their husband? Now, I know this sounds one-sided today, and we are going to have a message for men, and men are going to hear the same type of message, because I think it goes both ways. I think a husband should respect his wife as much as a wife should respect the husband. I think in a good marriage, in a real marriage, a husband will put his wife and her needs above himself. And a wife will put her husband and his needs above hers. And that way they both take care of each other. But do we have that today? I mean, when you think of the average household and they're on their own. There's not a lot of that connection, right? And kids aren't being taught the things they should be taught, because reality is a child learns from watching his parents. How you act will determine how your children will act. Now, some children will go completely opposite of how you act, and some of them will pick up exactly how you act, and some of them will combine you and your husband. So if a child doesn't see respect in a household, do you think the child's going to ever give respect outside the household? So to be a virtuous woman, a woman has to respect. And respect her children, respect her husband, respect her elders, respect her friends. That doesn't mean you got to like everybody and you got to do everything people say. There's a big difference. Mothering. I mean, this talks a lot about mothering. We already talked about the faith part. Teaching your children about God. A virtuous woman will nurture and care for her children. She will nurture and care for her children. I know that most of you in this room, well, I know all of you in this room, love and care for your children. But there are mothers today that care for other things more than their children. That put other things priority before their children. They don't nurture and care for their children. And some people, some women have gone so far that because of issues that have happened in their life, they are addicted to things, and that addiction is more important than their children. I wish I would have looked up the statistics of the amount of abortions that are happening daily, hourly, and every minute in this country. I mean, we have more people today that would rather kill their baby than be a mother. That's sad to me. And it's sad to me that we have people fighting for that right to kill their own baby. And I don't care what anybody says. A baby is a baby is a baby. I saw a post the other day that you could go to jail for destroying an eagle egg, but not for killing your own baby. Isn't that crazy? And I saw videos of how they do it, and that scars. I wish that every woman would have to watch those videos before they did it. I mean, I couldn't imagine. It's like putting a baby in a blender. I mean, why? And if it's late term, they cut it to pieces to pull it out. I mean, this is our world. And that's why biblical values are important. Because our world is setting new values and creating things that are norms and okay. And saying it's okay to kill a baby. Oh, well, you didn't want the baby. You had an accident. There's no accident. Shouldn't have had your leg spread. I understand there are instances where rape happens and where the mom could die, and you have to make that choice. Do we risk having this baby if I die? But the statistics and the reality of it is less than 4% of the women having abortions in this country are having abortions for those reasons. It's not because of rape. It's not because of child molestation. It's not because they might die. The statistics are low for those people. Most people that are having abortions are having abortions because they went out and they had sex the night before and they didn't want to have a baby. Or they find out 6 months later that they're pregnant, 3 months later, 2 months, whatever it is. And they don't want a baby with that person, or they don't want to be a mom. And to me, this is scary. It's a sign of what's coming. You know, it's a sign of where our world is. And for somebody to say that this is outdated. A mother nurtures her children with love, and a mother disciplines them, and she trains them. So, to be a virtuous woman, part of that is being a mother. And that's teaching your children about God, raising your children in God, nurturing and loving for your children, and disciplining your children. I looked up Bible verses, trying to find Bible verses on how to raise your children. Okay. All the verses I found all said kind of the same thing. Do not spare the rod. Discipline your children. Beat them. If they act up, spank them. I'm like, what? The Bible says this? No wonder why I got so many. My parents did not spare the rod. But it says you have to discipline your children. You know, because the reality is children are evil. Children are evil. How many mom in here believe me? Amen, right? Amen. They are born evil, and you got to teach them to be good. Kids are not naturally good. A kid takes what he wants until you teach him you do not take from others. Right? A kid will just take it. You take them to a store, they'll just take it. What do you mean? I can't have it? Then they throw a fit because they can't have it. A kid will lie to you. Quick. I didn't do it. Wasn't me. But you have to teach them not to lie, right? It's natural to them. I don't know why. It's a natural fear reaction, I guess. For me it was. I lied a lot when I was a kid because I didn't want to get beat. And I had a 50-50 chance Dad wouldn't figure out the truth. Okay, I probably had less than a 50% because he already knew the truth when he came in. He was already going to beat me. He just wanted to see how bad I wanted to be beaten. But kids do things that they have to be trained. They have to be taught. And if we're in a society to where we can't teach our children the right way, timeouts don't work. Sorry. Kids today love to be alone. Go to your room. Okay. They spend most of their time in their room. That's not punishment for a kid today. Go outside and build a fort. But Dad, I've got a Halo party at 3. A virtuous woman takes care of her health. She's like a merchant ship bringing food from afar. She gets up before dawn. She prepares breakfast for her household, plans the day for her servant girls. She inspects the fields. She takes care of her body. She takes care of her family. She prepares healthy food for her family. Do we do that? Do we even have the availability of healthy food today, really? I mean, we sit and look at everything's GMO, everything's got this or that in it. Our beef has got pesticides or hormones or whatever in it. I mean, do we even have healthy food today? I mean, I have learned being on a diet, if it comes in a box, don't eat it. If it comes frozen in a pre-made package, don't eat it. Right? I mean, it's terrible, but that's pretty much what's available. But a woman of noble character, she takes care of herself. She tries to remain healthy. She lives an example to her family and her children. A woman of noble character serves. She serves her husband, she serves her family, she serves her friends, and she serves her neighbors. A woman of noble character minds her finances. She spends her money wisely. How many of you spend your money wisely? I know you do. I know you guys. How many actually do? I mean, I don't always spend my money wisely. God knows. I drink a Red Bull every Sunday. I mean, it's not wise. Well, this Sunday I forgot. Maybe that's why I'm not tired yet. But she takes care of her finances. She's a homemaker. She takes care of the house. You see, back then they had roles. You know, women had roles, men had roles. Men did certain things, women did certain things. That's the way it was made, that's the way it worked. Nowadays, those roles are blurred, right? But I think in every household, there's got to be roles. Everybody's got to take care of something. It kind of gets jumbled up and mixed up and funky. Now, I'm not saying that a woman can't work, and I'm not saying a woman has to do everything around the house. But I believe that every family figures that out. But I believe that not only should a woman, but a man in the household be willing to do their part and be a homemaker. I prefer a woman that's a homemaker. I like to come home to fresh cooked bread smell. I mean, it's kind of nice. A clean house. You know, I think part of being a man for me is that joy of coming home knowing that I worked all day to provide for my family. A woman uses her time wisely. And a woman is beautiful from the inside and out. These are some of the virtues that are shown of a woman with noble character. Now, we look through these virtues, and some of them may seem really outdated, right? I mean, we do have some women that like to be stay-at-home moms, which ideally it's the best thing for the kids is for somebody to be home with them all the time. Anymore today, I'm starting to believe that homeschooling your children is a lot better option than anything else. But in reality, the reality is the way our world is and the way things are financially. It's really hard to do that. And I say all of this today, not to get down on moms, not in any way, but to let moms know that God's calling us as parents, as wives, as mothers. He's calling us to, well, not us, but he's calling you to be something more for your kids and more for your family and more for yourself and more for him. And he's created principles for us in a book. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this. I mean, we all look for self-help guides. What do I do? What do I do when my kid's acting this way? How do I handle this? And we'll Google it. We'll look it up. Oh, wait, they're ADHD. Well, if you pull out the Bible and you Google it, what's it say? Don't spare the rod. My kid's talking back to me. Okay, let's see. Numbers. Don't spare the rod. Okay. But the Word of God was given to us. And it brought about a set of morals. And it set morals and standards for our lives. And these are morals and standards that have stood the test of time. And some of the morals we have outside of the church and outside, they've they've come from this. They've come from the morals that the Bible has set. And I want to warn you. I want to warn you that our world doesn't want us to live by these morals. Our world wants to make our own morals, to make our own laws, our own rules on how to live and govern our lives. And today you see that the world would rather be a do what you want, live how you want to live kind of society, right? You're free to do whatever you want. I noticed the other day that Oklahoma's actually going to rule on a law that allows women to walk around topless in places where men can walk topless. Yeah. I guess in Texas it's already been legal. That any place a man can go without a shirt, a woman can. This is where our world has come to. Well, why is it okay for him if I can't do it? Well, I don't know. Because people aren't turned on by a man's chest. Right? Because we ate the forbidden fruit. But our society is changing these norms and changing these morals and changing our values. And they're saying that these values are no longer applicable today. But I stand here and I want to tell you that when you read through Proverbs 31, and you see that a woman is supposed to be of faith, and she's supposed to teach her family about that faith, and she's supposed to be respectful in marriage and faithful in marriage. Okay, wait a minute. What's faithful today? Okay, I won't go there. It's another day. She's supposed to be a mother. Teach her children about God. Nurturing her children about God and nurturing her children with love and discipling them and training them and teaching them and disciplining them. She's supposed to keep herself healthy and not only that, but prepare stuff to keep her family healthy. She's supposed to serve her husband and her family and her friends and her neighbors. Now, again, like I was saying, today I'm focusing on women, but the same message could be read to men. Right? I mean, this isn't just about a wife of noble character. This could be about a man of noble character. Because men are supposed to do the same thing, but today's a message for mothers. So when we read through this and we see this, how could you ever say that this isn't a good way to be a mom? That this isn't a good way to be a wife? To be a woman of noble character? And in reality, if you take today's standards, could you add to this? I mean, take the values today. Would you want them in this list? As you go through this week, this message isn't just for mothers. This message is for all women. You know, like I said earlier, as a church, as a body, we're teaching biblical values to every child that comes in this church. Not just here, but out there. You see, the majority of children learn with these and these. Right? They learn by watching and they learn by hearing. And they pick up how to act and how to behave by watching you and listening to you, right? I grew up and sometimes in a do as I say, not as I do household. But I ended up becoming what they did and not necessarily what they said. And then some. My dad was nowhere near what I became. My dad used to tell me that there is nothing on this earth that you will do that I haven't done. And I think by the time I was 18, he said, "Yeah, you surpassed that a long time ago." But I want to challenge you, singles, single moms, married moms. If you can, if you can learn what it means to be a woman of God, and if you can allow Jesus into your life in such a way that he helps guide your decisions daily, and if you could get to the point where you can completely model Jesus in your life, you will see that not only will there be a change in you, but you will see a change in your kids. You will see a change in your husband. You will see a change in your friends. You will see a change in the world around you. When you start looking through biblical eyes, when you start teaching your children the morals that the Bible teaches and not the morals that our world is teaching, you'll see that your children will change. They will become different. Your family will change. There are some people I notice that from the time they start coming to church, their whole family's different. You ever notice that? There are some people, their family's completely different. There are some people, the way they talk is completely different. And the way they talk about their wives or their husbands is different once they find God and once they get God in their lives. Because these morals and these values and this rule book here will change your life. If you want to be the mother that you can be, the instruction book's right here. So I want to challenge you as mothers. I know some of you are the greatest mothers I've ever met. And actually, you all are. I'm not saying that anybody, that came out bad. I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying that they're a bad mother. And for those of you that aren't mothers, you will be one day. And it's a good time to start learning now on what it takes to be a mom and what it takes to raise children. I want to thank you all for coming today. I'm so blessed to have a church full of mothers. I'm so blessed we have a church full of kids. I love it. I love seeing kids running around. And as you go through this week, pull out Proverbs 31 and read that. And I challenge you every day, just read that. And I want you to start thinking, do I have these values and these virtues in my life? Am I this kind of woman? You know, and you can replace some of the stuff. She goes out and buys land and builds a vineyard. I mean, who does that? But you can think about, she goes out and she goes to work and she does everything she can do at work and does a good job, right? She makes something out of it. In her work quality, she does her best. You know, so you can take this and you can change some of the stuff and make it to where it fits. You know? Yeah, you're not going to go out and milk cows, but, you know, you go to the store and you buy good milk. But I want to challenge you to look at this and say, okay, am I lacking in this area? As a mother, am I lacking in this? Am I good in this? Could I be more in this? Could I have more Jesus in me? Could I teach my kids more? I know that one day when I have kids, I don't want to be a parent that never taught my children about God. I want my kids to learn from me about God. And I know some of you, your children are older. Some of them are still young, but it doesn't matter what age. Your kids will never learn if you don't teach them. So, with that, happy Mother's Day. I love all of you. We've got a gift for everybody. Enjoy it wisely. I tried to find bubble bath, but they don't have bubble bath in this. Does nobody take bubble bath? They don't have the time. They don't have the time. Okay, if you ever need the time, I know I'm going to regret saying this, but because we have so few mothers here, I can say this. If you ever want the time, call me. I'll come over, and I will cook dinner and watch your kids for an hour while you guys can go do whatever you want. Okay? I'll even go further. I'll do a Friday night special. We'll have an outdoor movie for the kids. And then you guys can go out on date night. Cool? Deal. Then you can't tell me you don't have the time. Dear God, I come to you today and I praise your name. And I thank you that that we've all had so many godly and loving women in our lives. And I thank you that we have so many women in this church that are desiring to draw closer to you. And I pray that you open up the door for them and you draw them in and you guide them on ways to be a better mother, to be all they can be, and to let them know that they're never going to be perfect. You know, to be a virtuous mother is not perfection. It's about doing your best. It's about teaching your best, Lord. And I pray that you comfort them and you guide them and that you give them those 5-minute moments out of the day where they can find some peace and rest and maybe take a bubble bath. Be with us as we go through this week. Love on us, hold us, and guide us. In your name I pray. Amen. Thank you, guys. You have a good day.